The Red Guards. After that. Hello everyone. My name is Wen Xie. I was born in Beijing in 1953. When I was 13, the Cultural Revolution began, and I joined the Red Guards. I was then sent to the countryside of Shaanxi province as part of the downward sentence policy. It was a truly turbulent time. Today, I would like to share my experiences with you. My father was a university professor, and my mother was a high school teacher. I had one younger sister, and we lived with my grandmother. We lived in a traditional Beijing Sihiyuan, Chinese courtyard house. It consisted of 4 buildings surrounding a central garden, which we used as a vegetable patch for cucumbers, cabbage, and other crops. We also had several servants. I loved painting and theater, and dreamed of becoming an artist. I enjoyed my time both at school and at home. Then, in June 1966, the Cultural Revolution suddenly began. Within a few weeks, the atmosphere at school changed dramatically. One by one, my classmates became Red Guards. Teachers were expelled from their classrooms. Then one day, the principal, with the back half of his head shaved, was dragged out to the school's playground and made to stand on a platform. He was surrounded by students shouting, "Long live the Cultural Revolution! Down with the anti-capitalists!" Red Guards poured red ink on the principal's head. I joined in chanting the words, but I didn't understand what they meant. Society was in complete chaos, but for us children, it was stimulating. All classes were cancelled at school, and instead, we were made to memorize quotations from Chairman Mao. We went around town putting up posters and slogans promoting the revolution. Soon, every alley and street throughout Beijing was covered with posters and slogans. Every day, around 20 Red Guards stood outside the school gates, and we had to declare our social class every time we passed by. Students from working class or peasant backgrounds would proudly say that their family members were in the People's Liberation Army. Still, students from landlord or capitalist families would bow their heads and whisper, like criminals. When it was my turn, I would proudly say, "My father is a Communist Party member." My friend Hong, whose father was a People's Liberation Army officer, was already a Red Guard. I was extremely envious of his deep green uniform and red armband. One day, I told him, "I want to become a Red Guard, too." A few days later, Hong called me over, his face gloomy. He told me there were people opposed to my becoming a Red Guard. "Do you know that your father is known as one of the 5 black categories?" he asked. The 5 black categories were a collective term for landlords, wealthy peasants, counter-revolutionaries, unscrupulous elements, and right-wing elements. In contrast, workers, poor peasants, soldiers, and revolutionary cadres were collectively known as the 5 red categories and considered righteous people. "My father isn't a black 5. He's a Communist Party member and has supported Mao Zedong's movement," I retorted. "I know you don't believe me, but you should see for yourself. Come here this afternoon," Hong said, handing me a piece of paper with an address written on it. "We're in the midst of a fierce political struggle. You have to decide where you stand." The place was the square where my parents used to take me for the Chinese New Year. Surrounded by palace-like buildings, the corridor walls were covered with large posters and the smell of newspaper paste wafted through the air. The square was packed with workers and students, and their shouting echoed throughout the area. I found a gap in the crowd and stood there. In the middle of the crowd was the famous playwright Mr. Wang. Surrounded by Red Guards, he had a placard around his neck that looked like a trash can lid and read, "Black 5. A triangular hat made of white cardboard was placed on his head. There were several other people there, too, with placards and tricorn hats. Everyone had their heads down. To my surprise, I saw my father among them. He was dressed exactly as he had been when he left that morning, wearing gray pants and a white shirt. His head was down, and he looked very weak. At that moment, I felt a fear I had never felt before. "Down with the anti-capitalists," a Red Guard shouted into the microphone. Before I knew it, countless fists were being raised, and thousands of chants were ringing out. Unconsciously, I too was raising my fist, but I couldn't see what was going on at the stage. A few days later, while I was having dinner, we heard a loud bang from the front gate and about 20 Red Guards burst into our house. They broke into my father's study. Among them was Uncle Hu, my servant. He told me, "Your father is a Class 5 black crime, and you should reconsider your relationship with your father." The sound of things breaking echoed from the study, and my grandmother's hands were shaking as she held me. After the Red Guards left, my mother and I cleaned up my study. My father, meanwhile, had his elbows on the desk and his face covered. From the next day, I was shunned at school as a black Category 5 child. I was made to clean the toilets every day. Soon after, my father was arrested, and my mother became a target of criticism. The Red Guards occupied half of our house, and we were forced to live a difficult life. Still, I dreamed of becoming a Red Guard, wearing a dark green uniform and red armband like the other children around me. Soon, factional conflict within the Red Guards intensified. Some claimed to be the most loyal to Mao Zedong thought, and began fighting among themselves. Some even stole weapons from the army and took up arms to attack rival Red Guard groups. This was a good thing for a black Category 5 kid like me. Fighters were needed, and anyone was welcome to join. Hong invited me to join the struggle in Guangzhou. It was an excellent opportunity for me. Hong and 3 other boys traveled from Beijing to Guangzhou. At the time, Red Guards were allowed to travel by train for free. The journey from Beijing to Guangzhou took 3 days, and the train was extremely crowded. People were even sitting on the luggage racks and under the seats. We all passionately discussed how we should live faithfully to Mao Zedong thought. I completely forgot about my family and my heart was beating fast. When we arrived in Guangzhou, some of the Red Guards Hong had taken with him were carrying machine guns. We were also given handguns. Before I even knew how to use them, we heard the constant sounds of gunfire and ambulance sirens. I felt a strange excitement and even felt like death was near. However, there was no actual fighting, and we returned to Beijing a few weeks later. There, we were attacked by another group of Red Guards, and I was beaten with an iron bar, suffering serious injuries. I spent some time recuperating at home. Wounded, I was helpless and spent my days reading my father's books. By this time, the school was in ruins and deserted. The civil war between the Red Guards escalated, and the government finally changed course. Mao Zedong instructed young people to be sent to rural areas to study agriculture. At that time, state orders were absolute. With so many young people being sent to the countryside at once, Beijing Station was packed. My father was in custody, so my mother came to see me off. As the train started moving, my mother yelled something in the crowd, but I couldn't hear her. I could see her crying, though. After about 9 hours, we arrived in the countryside of Shaanxi province. From there, 8 young men and 8 young women from Beijing were put into a horse-drawn carriage and transported to a village. It was a very cold night, and the room was huge, with no electricity, only kerosene lamps hung from the ceiling. This was where the 16 of us lived. The next day, farm work began. Our work consisted entirely of physical labor, such as carrying baskets of soil on a shoulder pole, pushing carts filled with large stones, and carrying sheaves of corn. That was the mission of the 16 people from Beijing. Just as I was starting to get used to the hard labor, I received a letter from my grandmother. It said that my father had been sent to a labor camp in Hunan province, my mother to one in Hebei province, and my sister to Shaanxi province. The letter said that my grandmother was alone at home in Beijing. I read the letter with tears in my eyes. Those sent down were provided with food by the government. They received rations of white flour once a week, meat and rice once a month, and cooking oil once a year. Corn was their staple food. They only had 1 bath a month. Their only source of entertainment was a young boy who would bring his harmonica in the evenings, and we would all sing along to his tunes. This lifestyle continued for 7 years. With the death of Mao Zedong in 1976, the Cultural Revolution ended, and I returned to Beijing from Shaanxi province. My father, mother, and sister also returned. The Gang of 4 were arrested, and Deng Xiaoping adopted the policy of reform and opening up, bringing significant changes to China once again. Thanks to my father, I was able to enter a classical Chinese art school and later work for many years at a theater in Beijing. I'm now retired and living quietly in Beijing. Both my father and mother have passed away. My younger sister is married and also lives in Beijing. Even now, I sometimes ponder the meaning of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution. However, I can't find the answer. My father being forced to wear a tricorn hat, my mother crying at Beijing railway station, and singing Chinese folk songs accompanied by a harmonica while I was sent down to the countryside, these are some of the memories I will never forget. I hope that another decade like the Cultural Revolution will never come again.
What did you think, everyone? The Cultural Revolution was a tragedy that befell China. I have shared this video as a testimony from someone who experienced it firsthand. Disgusted by the Red Guard's tyranny in the cities, Mao Zedong implemented the down to the countryside policy, sending approximately 20 million young people to the countryside. Xi Jinping was also sent to the countryside of Shaanxi province, where he lived in a cave and worked hard. How did this experience influence the formation of his personality? You can read more about this in Kitan. If you're interested, search for kitan.com. Until then, see you in the next video.
Kitan Club invites you into mysterious stories. Click the link in our profile or search kitan-stories.com. We look forward to your visit and will provide you with free samples. Please click like and subscribe.